It was Christmas in Springfield. The kind of cold that burns the bones. Freezing rain laced the windows like spider cracks. Inside, the house was warm, cluttered, filled with all the usual lies we called tradition. Carol had insisted on using the same mismatched plates we'd used every year since I married her. Chipped, floral, sentimental. She called it homey. I called it hollow. But I didn't say that out loud. Not that night. Not anymore. The tree blinked in the corner. Too many lights. Too many ornaments. Half were Tyler's from when he was a boy, the kind made in school with cheap glue and pipe cleaners. He was 22 now, taller than me, sharper, meaner. Still, Carol couldn't let go. Every year, she'd unwrap those cracked little relics and say, "He made this when he was 6. Like that meant something. Like that gave him the right to keep swinging. He sat across from me at the table, arms crossed, hoodie still on. Carol had asked him to dress nice. He hadn't listened. He never listened. Not to her, not to me. He knew he didn't have to. That was the arrangement. He could act however he wanted, and the consequences would always find someone else. Usually me. I grilled the ham, took the day off to do it. Carol made the sides, though she forgot the salad until we were already sitting down. Classic. Her mind was always elsewhere these days. Sometimes I thought she left it there on purpose. Tyler was halfway through his second glass of wine when it came. The line. The one I think he'd been sharpening for years, waiting for just the right moment to slide it between my ribs. Live your own life. This isn't your family. He didn't even look up when he said it. Just muttered it into his plate, like it wasn't meant for anyone and everyone at the same time. I stared at him. Carol poured herself more wine. Not a flicker crossed her face. Not a twitch, like she hadn't heard it. But I know she had. She always hears everything. No one said a word. The forks kept moving. Tyler didn't even pause. My throat dried out in an instant, like I'd swallowed a mouthful of dust. I looked at Carol again. Nothing. I stood up. No speech. No accusation. No raised voice. I just rose from my seat. The head of the table, the place I'd earned not by blood but by labor, and walked out. No one stopped me. No one called my name. Not even the dog followed. I passed the photos on the wall in the hallway. Frames I had hung, drywall I had patched, paint I had rolled on myself during that first winter we all shared the house. Tyler's face stared back at me in every one, beaming, grinning, surrounded by cousins, friends, his mother. I wasn't in a single picture. Not one. 16 years in this house, and somehow I had never made it into the frame. In the bedroom, the silence hit like a wave. I sat on the edge of the bed, the one I'd bought, the one I'd paid off over 18 months of financing, and let the stillness wrap around me like a noose. That was the moment, right there, when the heat of his words settled into my chest and I finally understood. They had never seen me as family. Not Tyler. Not Carol. Not even when I handed over the check for his first car. Not when I remodeled the kitchen with my own hands. Bloodied knuckles, torn rotator cuff, every weekend for 6 months. Not when I worked double shifts to cover Carol's dental work after her insurance dropped her. None of it meant a damn thing. I was the man who filled the gaps. The stand-in. The background figure. The wallet that spoke softly and never asked for much in return. I used to think if I gave enough, did enough, endured enough, I'd become irreplaceable. That they'd look at me one day and see not the man who came second, but the man who stayed. But that night, that Christmas night, I saw the truth. I was never in the running. I was tolerated. Fixture. Something between a landlord and a ghost. I sat in the dark for a long time, the sound of their laughter bleeding through the wall. Tyler cracked a joke about the wine. Carol laughed too loud. It stung. I wanted her to come in, to say something, anything, even if it was wrong. But she didn't. She left me in that room like I didn't exist. And that's when it happened, the first shift. A quiet unraveling. I looked around the bedroom. Every corner told a story. The dresser I built from a kit when Carol said she wanted something more natural. The rug we argued over in that little shop downtown. The cracked baseboard I never got around to fixing. All of it mine. All of it paid for, maintained, kept alive by my hands. But none of it meant I belonged. I walked over to the closet, stared at my shirts, the ties I rarely wore anymore, the boots caked in dried paint from the remodel. I stood there trying to feel something, anger, heartbreak, grief. But I didn't feel anything, just a kind of cold clarity. They had drawn the line. Tyler had said it out loud, and Carol had underlined it with silence. So be it. I sat back down, stared at the floor. It wasn't about one comment. It was about years. Years of being the man who showed up when no one else did, who paid the bills, who kept the cars running, who stood in the rain fixing the gutter while Tyler sulked on the porch with his arms crossed, who sat through every parent-teacher meeting, every award ceremony, every little crisis while his real father sent text messages once a season. I had made peace with not being called Dad. I told myself it didn't matter, that love wasn't about titles, that showing up was enough. But it wasn't, because showing up without being seen doesn't make you a father. It makes you a fool. I remember one winter years back. Carol had the flu, Tyler had a busted knee from basketball, and the furnace went out during a blizzard. I stayed up 2 nights straight, rotating space heaters, checking the pipes, boiling water for Carol to breathe. Tyler barely said a word to me. When he healed up a month later, he posted a photo on Instagram. "Thanks, Mom. Couldn't have gotten through it without you." I read that caption 5 times. Didn't say anything. Just swallowed it, like I always did. But I remembered. I remembered every omission, every eye roll, every time Carol excused his cruelty as just being a teenager. Every time she said, "He doesn't mean it." Like that erased the sting. 16 years of silence adds up. And now it had a voice. Live your own life. This isn't your family. Maybe it never was. I thought I could build a family the way you build a house. Board by board, nail by nail. I thought love was earned like trust, through consistency, presence, sacrifice. But I was wrong. Family isn't what you build. It's what they let you become. And they never let me in. I lay back on the bed, eyes open, staring at the cracked ceiling. The laughter in the dining room faded. The clink of glasses, the scrape of chairs, Tyler's voice. All of it dulled like the world was slowly turning down the volume on my life. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just let go. Of the idea that I could fix it. Of the hope that someday I'd be enough. Of the fantasy that hard work breeds belonging. They had spoken. And this time I listened. When the laughter died down and the dishwasher hummed, I heard Carol's footsteps outside the bedroom door. She paused. I could feel her hesitation like a weight in the air. But she didn't knock. She didn't open the door. She went back downstairs. I stared at the ceiling until morning. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay on my back and stared at the ceiling until it stopped looking like a ceiling and started looking like a verdict. The house breathed around me. Pipes ticking, the furnace sighing, the faint creak of wood adjusting to the cold outside. Sounds I had fixed, paid for, maintained. Sounds that only existed because I existed there. Downstairs, the dishwasher hummed. Carol always ran it late. She liked waking up to clean plates. I wondered if she even noticed I wasn't beside her in bed. Morning came without apology. Gray light slid through the blinds like it didn't want to be seen. I sat up slowly, my joints stiff, my chest hollow but calm. That scared me a little, how calm I felt. No racing thoughts, no anger, just a clean, deliberate stillness, like a decision already made long before I admitted it to myself. I dressed quietly and went downstairs. Carol was already awake, wrapped in her robe, standing at the counter with her back to me, scrolling on her phone. She didn't turn around, didn't ask how I slept, didn't mention the night before. Silence, her favorite defense, her specialty. I poured myself coffee, the last of the good beans. I'd bought them 2 weeks earlier. She noticed that. "You're taking the last of that?" she asked, finally looking at me. "Yes." She frowned, like that was somehow unfair. That was when I knew. Not because of what she said, but because of what she didn't. She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't mention Tyler's words. Didn't say his name at all. She had already chosen the path of least resistance. And it wasn't me. I finished my coffee standing up, put the mug in the sink, and grabbed my jacket. She watched me this time. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To take care of something." She nodded. No follow-up. No concern. That was the last conversation we ever had as a couple. I drove through Springfield while the town was still half asleep. Christmas decorations sagged on porches, tired and wet from freezing rain. Inflatable Santas leaned sideways like they'd given up. I passed the hardware store where I'd spent hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars fixing a house that was never really mine. The bank opened at 9. I was there at 8:50. Inside, everything smelled like paper and carpet cleaner. Neutral. Safe. The kind of place where lives quietly change behind polite smiles. I sat with a woman who didn't know me and didn't need to. I asked for everything tied to my name. All of it. She blinked once, then nodded. We went line by line. Accounts, utilities, insurance, subscriptions, auto payments I'd forgotten existed because I'd set them up years ago and never looked back. Each one carried my name, my signature, my responsibility. I removed myself from everything. Power, internet, phone bundles, streaming services Tyler used like oxygen. Insurance authorizations Carol had access to just in case. Gone. No drama. No warning calls. No speeches. Just clean removal. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I thought they would. 16 years of being the safety net, and I was cutting the cords with surgical precision. It didn't feel cruel. Felt overdue. By noon, I was finished. I drove back to the house one last time. Tyler's car sat in the driveway. The one I helped him get. Co-signed. Insured. Maintained. I remembered him tossing the keys in the air that first day, grinning like he'd earned something. I remembered him saying, "Mom helped me with it." While I stood 6 feet away, I left my keys on the counter. House keys. Garage keys. Everything. I didn't look for Carol. Didn't need to. The house already felt like it had rejected me. I walked out without a note. The drive to Bloomington felt longer than it was. Every mile put space between me and the version of myself that believed endurance equaled love. My small house waited exactly as I remembered it. Quiet, empty, untouched by anyone else's expectations. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. No photos, no tension, no silence charged with judgment. Just silence that belonged to me. That night I slept. Deep, dreamless. They didn't notice at first. That was almost funny. The lights stayed on. Heat kept running. Tyler still streamed movies. Still scrolled. Still believed the world functioned automatically. That illusion lasted one day. By the evening of day 2, the messages started. Calls I didn't answer. Texts stacking up. "Are you serious? John, stop this. Just talk to me." I didn't. I cooked dinner for one. Ate slowly. The quiet didn't accuse me. It held me. Before bed, I checked my phone once. Carol again. "Please, we can fix this." I turned the phone face down and switched off the light. They told me to live my own life. So I finally did. Day 3 started like the others, quietly. I made breakfast in silence. The only sound in the house, the clicking of the stove and the slow boil of water for my tea. I sat by the window and watched the bare trees sway slightly in the wind. There was something satisfying in their honesty. They didn't pretend to bloom in winter. Around 10, my phone buzzed. Not a call, a message. "Tyler, you could have at least warned us. We can't even call the provider. Everything's in your name." No greeting. No apology. Just inconvenience disguised as outrage. I didn't respond. That was the first message. Then came Carol 2 hours later. "I'm trying to fix the utilities. They won't talk to me without your authorization. Can you please just call and put my name on the account?" I read it while finishing my lunch. Chicken and rice. Leftovers. Cheap, simple mine. She still hadn't used the word sorry. I imagined the scene. The blinking router light in the corner. The thermostat flashing an error code. Tyler pacing, phone in hand, cursing at automated menus. Carol wrapped in a blanket, not from cold but from discomfort. The house beginning to remind them that it ran on more than habit. It ran on me. Day 4 brought escalation. The landlord says the rent bounced. Did you forget to pay it? That one made me laugh. Out loud. Not a full laugh, more like a dry exhale. Forget? No. I remembered exactly what I'd done. I had canceled the auto payment. Sent a polite email to the landlord letting him know I'd no longer be responsible for the lease after the 31st. I had even offered to cover the final water bill. Clean break. No drama. Just math. Tyler texted again that night. Why would you do this now? We're still in the middle of the holidays. What's your problem? Still no mention of what he said. No mention of the words that started all of this. Just anger that the money stopped. That the man he dismissed had the nerve to disappear before paying the bill. The next day, I got a call from the bank. Fraud alert. Someone tried to log into our shared credit portal using outdated credentials. Failed the identity check. Carol. I had removed her access 3 days earlier. There was no confrontation. No screaming. Just a slow, quiet unraveling. Like a house where you pull one nail and the whole frame starts to groan. By day 5, the storm had arrived. The messages stopped being indirect. Tyler wasn't hiding behind passive phrasing anymore. You're just bitter because I never called you Dad. You should have known your place. There it was. The truth. 16 years. Every ride. Every repair. Every Christmas gift with my name on the receipt but not on the tag. Every sacrifice folded into the walls of that house like insulation. Warm, quiet, invisible. None of it mattered. Because I wasn't his father. Not by blood. Not by name. And never, not even once, by his own choosing. I had heard variations of it before. The sideways jabs. The introductions to friends where I was John. Never my stepdad. The look on his face when people mistook us for family. How quickly he corrected them. The way he gave credit to his mother for every good thing while handing me the silent bill. But this was the first time he'd said it out loud. You should have known your place. I suppose I should have. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because it hurt, it didn't, not anymore, but because of how effortless it was. How natural it must have felt to him to write it. Like he'd been waiting years for the moment he could finally say it and be proud. He thought I'd been holding out for the title, that I wanted the word Dad. Like it was a trophy. He didn't understand. I never cared about the word. I cared about the work. The weight. The showing up. I cared about being enough. But I wasn't. To him, I was a placeholder with a checkbook. So I stopped writing checks. By day 6, Carol's tone shifted. No more requests. No more updates. Just one message. Are you happy now? That one made me pause. I read it 3 times. Was I happy? No. This wasn't happiness. This was clarity. There's a kind of peace that comes after long exposure to quiet disrespect. The kind that doesn't scream at you, doesn't slap your face, just slowly drains your worth like a leak you can't find. When you finally stop the drain, it doesn't feel like joy. Feels like weightlessness. I didn't respond. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and reviewed my finances. For the first time in years, the numbers made sense. No unexplained gaps. No forgotten charges. No random withdrawals for late-night Ubers or emergency textbooks, or the subscription Tyler insisted was for school. The account was clean. Mine. Entirely mine. And they hated it. Because now they had to look directly at the machine they never bothered to understand. The heat came from a bill. The fridge from a payment. The house from a name. And that name was gone. Day 7 was quiet. No messages. No calls. I imagined the silence wasn't peace. It was panic. I pictured Tyler trying to apply for financial aid, only to realize he had no access to the right forms. Carol emailing customer support, waiting on hold for 40 minutes, only to be told, "We can't assist you without account holder verification." They weren't reaching out anymore. They were realizing how invisible I had made myself, how silently I had supported them, and how devastating it could be when someone like that, The quiet one, the one who never asked for credit, finally steps away. It wasn't revenge. It was removal. It was me, finally understanding that respect isn't earned by labor. It's given. Or it's not. And if it's not, you leave. The quiet returned in layers. Not all at once. First the phone stopped lighting up every hour. Then the long pauses between messages stretched into whole days. I noticed it the way you notice winter settling in, not with a single snowfall, but with the slow disappearance of color. On the 8th morning, I made tea and sat by the window. No radio, no television. Just the sound of water heating and the faint hum of the refrigerator. A working fridge. Paid for fridge. Mine. There's a difference between silence and peace. Silence can be hostile. Peace doesn't demand anything. This was peace. At 9:47 a.m. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Did you really leave? No name. No greeting. Just the question. Tyler. I didn't answer. Because even now, he was asking the wrong thing. Not why. Not what did I do. Just whether the absence was real. As if my presence had always been optional, something he could summon back if he needed it. I set the phone down and went about my day. I cleaned the kitchen. Slowly. Thoroughly. I wiped counters that hadn't seen fingerprints in years. I organized a drawer opened since before the marriage. Screws, nails, old receipts. At the bottom, I found the title to Tyler's car. Still in my name. He'd never transferred it. Never mentioned it. Just assumed it would always be there. I folded the paper once and placed it in a box. Labeled it loose ends. Not out of spite. Out of order. That afternoon, my accountant called. Her voice was neutral, professional, the tone people use when they already know the answer. John. Someone tried to access your retirement account this morning. I didn't ask who. I've already locked it, she continued. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't you. No, I said. It wasn't. A pause. She claimed she was handling things on your behalf. I closed my eyes. Just for a moment. Thank you for calling, I said. Please flag any further attempts. After the call, I sat very still. That was the line for me. Not the money, the assumption. That even now, even after everything, my role was still to absorb the impact. To be used quietly. To be tapped when things got hard. They hadn't learned anything yet. That night, a voicemail came through. Carol. Her voice sounded older. Strained. The confidence gone, replaced with something thinner. John. I don't understand what you're trying to prove. Tyler's struggling. We're all struggling. If you're hurt, we can talk about it. But this isn't you. You don't just disappear. I listened to it twice. Then I deleted it. Because she was wrong. This was me. Just not the version she benefited from. People confuse endurance with identity. They think if you've always stayed, you always will. They mistake patience for permission. They don't notice the moment when staying becomes erasure. I didn't leave to punish them. I left because I finally understood that staying meant agreeing with how they saw me. And I didn't. A few days later, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. My name written in uneven block letters. Tyler's handwriting. I'd seen it on permission slips, loan forms, birthday cards he never signed properly. Inside was a single card. Blank except for one sentence. If I say I'm sorry, will you come back? I held it between my fingers for a long time. Not because I was tempted, but because it confirmed everything. He wasn't sorry for what he said. He was sorry it cost him something. He wasn't reaching out to me, he was reaching for the function I served. The repairs, the payments, the invisible structure that kept his life upright. He still didn't see me, so I placed the card in the same box as the car title. Labeled it proof. That night, I slept without interruption. No dreams. No memories clawing at the edges. Just rest. In the weeks that followed, I heard nothing. No calls. No texts. No third-party messages. Either they had learned to survive without me, or they were still waiting, convinced I'd fold. I didn't. I started walking in the mornings. Fixed a loose step on the porch. Read books I'd bought years ago and never opened because someone always needed something from me. The world didn't collapse. It didn't even notice. And neither did they. That's the truth no one tells you about sacrifice. If it's done quietly enough, people don't miss it when it's gone. They just miss the comfort. This wasn't revenge. Revenge requires heat, anger, satisfaction. This was colder than that. This was acceptance. I stopped living where my name wasn't spoken. I stopped funding a life that required my absence to function. I didn't disappear. I simply stepped out of a role that was killing me. So tell me, was I wrong? Or is walking away the only honest response when you finally see the truth? Because I endured for 16 years, and all it earned me was silence. Would you have stayed?